Here's the lesson for the determining the equilibrium point. Okay, so when we say equilibrium, it is where it is the state in which market supply and demand balance each other. So ito yung point wherein yung quantity demanded and quantity supplied parehas at a given price of a certain product. So as you can see in the table, kung titingnan niyo yung table, ang point C sa demand schedule for rice and the point G for supply schedule of rice is where the equilibrium happens. So, ayan yung point wherein yung price is 40 and the quantity supplied and the quantity demanded is 200. So, parehas. Yan yung equilibrium point. And we will use this table to discuss our lesson as we proceed with the next slides. Okay, so we need the supply function and demand function to compute for the equilibrium point. So here, the given supply function and demand function is, for demand function, we have P equals A minus MDQD, where MD is the demand slope, QD is the quantity, equilibrium quantity demanded, and then A is the intercept if the quantity demanded is 0. And for the supply function, it's P equals A plus MSQS. A is the intercept if the quantity supplied is 0, MS is the slope of supply, and the QS will be the equilibrium quantity supplied. Take note, when we use supply function and demand function, the only given is the supply or demand slope and the intercept. We need to compute for the QD for the demand function and QS for the supply function, and we need to solve for the P because what we need to find out is the equilibrium price and the equilibrium quantity, because in order to achieve equilibrium point, that means the price is equal with with a balance with the quantity demanded and the quantity supplied. Okay, so the first step that we will do to compute for the equilibrium point is to solve for the demand slope and the supply slope. Okay, so for the slope of supply and the slope of demand, we have the formula. For slope of D or slope of demand, we need to compute for the change in price divided by the change in quantity. So, the formula is P sub 2 minus P sub 1 divided by the Q sub 2 minus Q sub 1. So, using the point A and B for the demand schedule for rice, so we have 60 minus 80 divided by 100 minus 0. So, we have negative 20 divided by 100. So, the slope is negative 0.2, or the absolute value is 0.2. Take note, we have a negative slope for supply for demand because of the inverse relationship of price and quantity. Because in demand schedule, as the price increases, the quantity demanded decreases. So as the price decreases, the quantity demanded increases. That's why there is an inverse relationship between the price and the quantity. Now, when we come to the supply, the slope of supply, of course, the same formula applies. Change in price divided by the change in quantity. So using point F and G for supplies, for the slope of supply, we have 40 minus 20 divided by 200 minus 100. So, we have there 20 divided by 100, or the slope will be 0.2. Okay, so as you can see there, the slope is has a positive value because the price and the quantity has a direct relationship when it comes to supply. So as the price increases, suppliers will supply, the quantity supplied is higher also. It also increases. Um, as we all know, in reality, supply is for the supplier or the businessman who supplies a certain product. And if they know that the price increases, they would want to sell more of that product because they want to have more income. On the part of the demand, that is on the part of the buyer, as the price increases, the demand will decrease because the buyer wants to save when it comes to choosing the products that they are going to buy. So, kaya ganun yung relationship ng demand sa price and yung relationship ng quantity supplied uh, compared with the price. Okay, now let's use this demand and supply function to solve for the equilibrium point. So using the supply function and demand function, for the demand function we have A minus MD QD, and for supply function we have P equals A plus MSQS. So kanina we compute for the slope, and take note what we are going to use for the slope is the absolute value or the positive value of the slope, which is 0.2. So we will now use, based on the table, the demand schedule for rice and the supply schedule for rice. As you can see, using point A and B for the demand schedule for rice, for the point A, we have an intercept of 0 for the quantity. That's why for the demand function, we use 80 for the price. And for the supply function, we only use the slope of 0.2. So A has no value when it comes to the supply function because, as you can see, the supply schedule, uh, for the point F, there is no zero intercept because the price is 20, the quantity is 100. So walang zero dyan. So walang value yung A for the supply function. The only time na gagamitin mo yung A is when the intercept is 0. So, ganyan yung rule niyan. So, as we transpose, okay, so we have, take note, when we say equilibrium price, the slope or the demand function and the supply function is equal. Ibig sabihin, parehas yung price sa demand and sa supply when we achieve the equilibrium point. So the the supply function and demand function is equal. So kaya pagdating dyan sa baba, makikita nyo 0.2Q, that is the supply function, equals 80 minus 0.2Q, that is the demand function. So with that, using the functions for supply and demand, we can compute for the quantity, equilibrium quantity. So we arrive there at 80 divided by 0.4. So the equilibrium quantity is 200. If you can observe on the given table or the demand schedule and the supply schedule, makikita nyo dyan sa point C, sa demand, and sa point F, sa supply, that is when the quantity demanded and the quantity supplied is 200. So, yan yung equilibrium quantity. Okay, so now that we have solved for the equilibrium quantity, we can now solve for the equilibrium price. So to solve for the equilibrium price, we can choose the supply function or the demand function, and the result will will always be the same. So if we will try to use the supply function, we have P is equals to 0.2 Q. So 0.2 Q times 200, because the 200 is the equilibrium quantity. So to solve for the price, zero point 0.2 times 200, that will be 40. And if we are going to use the demand function, we have 80 minus zero point 0.2 times the 200 equilibrium quantity. So we have 80 minus 40. The price is also 40. So that's how we solve for the equilibrium price.